I love it when you see those numbers coming up. 3, 2, 1, then go.
That's it. You're
Go,
live.
go where? Go.
Go live. Afternoon, folks. Give me a minute to get Facebook sorted.
Aye. I'll have a wee look and see on the YouTube.
Right, that's a Facebook audience on board. If there's anybody there, we'll find out when the comments come through. Good afternoon, David.
Afternoon, David.
It's the Two Davies on the 3rd of the 10th, 2024. And as usual, we'll start off the broadcast with a segment on Scotland. And then we'll move out to wider issues, UK-wide and beyond.
Yep.
Now, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to wider issues, but there's not that much going on here in Scotland at the moment, David.
It's pretty quiet. I think that's more down to the newspapers. Newspapers are not kicking up stuff that we normally would see, where the lies and made up stuff. But they're still doing it. They're still doing it, but not as much.
No, at the moment they're too busy having a party, having to go to the Labour Party for sleaze, as we know, but we'll get some of that going. Now, David, before we get into this, I was in the after show chat yesterday, and I was speaking to one of the audience members, who I'll no name, and that audience member was asking me where we are in the independence movement. And I told her, if you listen to what the First Minister said in his first speech, he said it's about process, right? And of course, at the time, you're notified, and I says, what fucking process? There isn't any process in place to get independence. But I forgot, we're one step behind that again. We just got a thumping fucking whacking at the last general election. And there is no mandate going forward. So the SNP are in a sticky wicket, because coming up to 2026, they're going to have to ask the people for a new mandate to keep the pressure up for independence. And of course, as we know, they've had 5 mandates. It's put splits in the movement because the movement wasn't happy. And now, the splits in the movement is what led to the loss of the Westminster election there. Of that, there is absolutely no doubt. And this viewer said to me, can we not get a coalition of pro-independence parties together and maybe get a majority? I says, we already had a majority pro-independence party. Then certain people within the movement put splits in the fucking movement, and all of a sudden, we don't have a majority behind a pro-independence party. People really have short memories on how this process works. Anyway, folks, if you want to know where we're at and what John Swinney's words meant, is that we are at square one.
Well,
the pro-independence parties are going to have to go back to the people of Scotland and ask for a mandate to keep the pressure on Westminster to eventually allow them to ask the question. So that's where we're at, folks.
Step 1. Get rid of John Swinney.
I'm not interested in that, David. I'm asking where he spoke about process.
Yeah.
It's where we're at. It doesn't matter who's driving the bus at this point in time.
You know fine well, if it's John Swinney, there will be no process. The process will effectively be, well, we need to ask Westminster for a Section 30. That's John Swinney's process.
That is the process. Alex Salmon set it in fucking stone. There's only one way around that now, and that's a Westminster election. After all, since the powers have been taken from the Lords and given to the Commons, then our MPs carry your sovereignty.
Yeah.
And Humza was right. That was the way out. Yeah. But as far as the Scottish Parliament's concerned, Alec and Nicola tied their horns because they entered into the end agreement, setting a legal precedence that lot down the road have to grant that Parliament line road the Section 30 order to ask this particular question.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people, if you want to know where we're at square one.
Yeah.
And we've got a bloody hard couple of years in front of us, especially in the SNP, but those in the other pro-independence parties as well, because we're going to have to convince the people of Scotland to keep the pressure up by giving them another mandate and a majority of that parliament along the road. It'll be difficult.
Yeah, but if it's John Swinney still in charge, then giving the SNP another mandate is pointless.
John Swinney's still in charge with his record with fucking elections and no win it anyway. We're going to have a unionist coalition along that road.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get to it. Talking about where we are. Well, where we're at here in Scotland in the Scottish Parliament is unions playing funny games to make the Scottish government look bad. And this comes in the form of motions and raising debates. And yesterday it was on the housing emergency. And believe this or not, Poverty Pay, a branch office manager of the Red Tories here in Scotland, and a Sarwar, he brought a motion to the Parliament to say that the Scottish Government had failed the Scottish people on housing. Because of this.
How dare he? How bloody dare he? Eh?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes, how very dare he. But anyway, during the debate, they discussed how the capital budget's been cut by 9% since 2016. And so there's less money to spend on building houses, but the Scottish Government is investing 600 million to build more social rented housing, more affordable housing. But we'll get to that in a minute. So anyway, the Labour motion fails. And the SNP motion saying that they recognise there is a problem and that they work with the Westminster government because they're vote takers when it comes to funding all roads lead to Westminster to try and alleviate the problems. But the one thing that didn't happen in that debate, David, was they didn't talk about the cause of this rapid rise in the amount of people who are homeless.
Well, I would have thought that by now that was fairly obvious.
But it's not fairly obvious. But the reason why it was being avoided in the debate in the Scottish Parliament, especially by the unionists who were doing the questioning, was because they are directly responsible for the reason why there's an increase in the people who are homeless.
If you look at it, as we were discussing, right, step one, Liz Truss. She effectively kiboshes the entire UK economy in just a number of weeks. Marvellous, right?
It is.
Then you've got the Bank of England. The Bank of England shoved everything up they possibly could. Meant that people couldn't afford their mortgages. Meant that people that have got flats or whatever that are renting out, they've got to show up the rent to actually make
the mortgage
pay, right? And so what's happening now is people are finding themselves out of a door. Simple as that.
Aye.
These poor people that constantly they're
thanks, Stephen.
They're destitute. Simple as that.
Yes. Now, as you say, David, Stephen's given the £10 super chat that says support for the Red Tories is dwindling, and it is.
Thanks, Stephen.
Anyway, let's cover the subject you're talking about. The vegetable, we already had inflationary pressures because of pressures in the world market to open it up. And then we had Truss fucking the financial services up. We had the Bank of England shove up interest rates, which affected buy-to-let mortgages, and it affected ordinary mortgages. Ordinary mortgage holders who were coming to the end of their fixed price deal were facing thousands of pounds in an increase a year, which they couldn't afford. As you and I spoke with David, they were honing their keys back to banks. Yeah.
Or back to people that are renting out the flat.
Landlords and buy-to-let landlords buy-to-let landlords, they're just not taking up properties in the market now.
Yeah.
And the properties they have got, they're selling because the people who are in them can't afford the rents anymore, and they're having to go to court and fight to get them out.
Yep.
So they're basically getting their buy-to-lets repossessed as well.
So let's say you were stood in the centre of Holyrood, right? Imagine you were stood right in front of all the benches, SNP, Labour, Tory, right? And somebody asked you, right in the middle, what's the answer, Mr. McGuinness? What's the answer to all of this?
What's dead simple? Don't build houses at this point in time. They're being sold for buttons after they're being repossessed. Take them off the banks.
Yeah, exactly.
600 million quid will buy you an awful lot of repossessed properties for the bank.
Yeah.
And then rent them out. And any money the Scottish Government makes out of maintaining these properties to a reasonable standard can go into the public purse.
Yeah.
And the same thing with any housing budget that the councils have got right now. Stop building, start buying.
Now, what's the interest rate at the moment? What's the standard interest rate from the Bank of England? Right, 5%. Well, I know it's later on we're discussing it, but just bring it in for a second. They've upset the marketplace because the governor of the Bank of England has talked about reducing interest rates by 0.5%.
No, just going faster. He hadn't mentioned any numbers, but he spoke the money markets.
Yeah. Now, my way, if I was stood in front of that guy, I'd say reduce it by 2%. Doesn't matter what happens. What you're going to do is you're going to help people to stay in their houses. Something like that.
Hold on, we sort this one out. We only need 51% of the total vote in 2026 to enact an application to the United Nations Directive for Sovereign Nations' Right to Self-Determination. I haven't got a Scooby what you're talking about, Henry. If you want to send me a link with the information, the relevant information, I'm willing to look at it.
That'd be good. Yep.
Okay,
David, can you copy me in that, please?
If I get the information, I'll be for Henry.
Yeah.
Hi, Roshan.
As far as I'm concerned, the UN Charter number 1 talks about Scotland or any country, if you like, having a right to self-determination.
Aye,
but every country's got that.
Yes, it's a human right. Anyway, I don't want to get away from the subject we're talking on. I just wanted to address Henry's comment that I don't know.
Yeah. Henry might have information that we don't have.
Yes.
So, and we accept that. We accept and recognise that, right?
Aye.
But
now, can I get back to what we're talking about before I lose the thread? Right. So basically, the reason that we are seeing such a surge in the amount of people out of homes at this point in time is actually the effect of the mini budget that Liz Truss enacted coming through. These times take a wee bit of time to come through. Now, what's happening now is the landlords who were forced to put their rents up by 8% as opposed to 5%, which is their interest rates went up because they've still got to cover maintenance and, of course, make a couple of quid for their pension off it.
Mm-hmm.
They're spending their time putting people on the street because they can't afford the increases in their rent.
That's right.
As I say, we've had people with repossessions, and of course, that puts pressure on the social housing market.
Yeah.
Because the people are also leaving the private market because they can't afford the rents there.
Yeah.
As I say, so buying, that's where the Scottish Government and the Council should be at right now.
Yeah.
They should be watching repossession auctions. And especially councils should be getting back and it should be going to these and buying housing stock, ex-council housing stock that they sold because they get over buttons in auctions.
If it's discussed, you've got maybe a couple with kids or a woman with kids or whatever in a bought house, can't afford the mortgage. what does what are they going to do about that? Are you going to create yet another problem by putting that woman and the children and the man, if it's a man, woman, and children, out of the house?
Well,
What's
as we
the
know,
point in
the
that?
Tory government, put into place, whereas if you fall behind your rent, your mortgage, then you've got a year to get it sorted out, or else before the banks can start proceedings to have you removed from that property.
All right. So
Right.
supposing that year's done. What's the proper way of dealing with it?
Well,
What you do is you convert that mortgage, you convert that house to a rented property.
the banks are already doing that
renting for
because they can't sell. The banks are already doing that because they can't sell in a market where people can't get mortgages and can't afford them.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden we'll get banks acting as landlords.
Yeah, as
and
government.
they don't like it.
Yeah.
They would much rather get these things off their books. Right, let's move on. As I say, but the main thing about that debate was they've only talked about the cause of this increase in homeless people, and folks, it's the effect of Truss's budget filtering through now.
Yeah.
All right, and high interest rates. Right, the assisted dying bill in the Scottish Parliament is dead.
Tell us why.
Well, apparently, the Scottish Parliament could pass the bill, but it couldn't help and assist anyone to die.
So for the very first time, we've got a Parliament which is prepared to bring forth assisted dying for the people of Scotland. So what's happened?
They've been told by Westminster, sorry, the drugs that you will use to help humanely kill people who want to die because of pain and suffering, we're not letting you use them for that purpose. And drugs policy is reserved. So actually, if the Scottish Parliament had passed this bill, there would have been a Section 35 order to veto it anyway.
Yeah.
But what this does tell us, of course, is what we're really learning very, very quickly, and that is the limitations of devolution.
I mean, you think of all the time and the debate and all the rest of it that's going on regarding this. Margaret MacDonald, she stood up in the part. I remember she did a very, very eloquent, sweet speech, even although she was sort of like well into her last days, right?
Yeah.
And pointless. Until we have independence, we cannot bring forth things like that.
Well, anyway, the assisted dying bill, they didn't intervene the last time because they knew it wasn't going to pass apparently, but there's a chance it could pass this time, so they're intervening early. So the Health Minister, Neil Gray, tells us that the bill is dead because although they could pass the bill, and it wouldn't get royal assent because there would be a Section 35 order slapped on it.
Yep.
Okay. Right, new Tory branch office manager makes debut at First Minister's questions. So what did...
I thought it was going to be Murdo the Fud, but anyway, there you go.
Your memory's fuck, man. I was celebrating on Monday having won 20 quid. Losing streak in elections continuing. Anyway, what is it that Russell Finlay went on? Well, he's putting pressure on the First Minister and the Scottish Government to scrap the National Care Scheme. He's saying it's lost the support of the unions, it's lost the support of the councils, but we know that was politically motivated. We spoke about it in the last programme.
Mm-hmm.
And so Finlay asked the First Minister, why don't you just quit? And the First Minister tells him quite calmly, because there's a need. There is a need for good quality standardised social care in Scotland. That's why they won't drop it. That's why the Health Minister's getting round the table with the councils again and the trade unions again, and they want to get this moving forward. And as we spoke about last time, the people who work in the sector want it. The people who receive the care want it. But as we know, it's embarrassing for the people down south of that border because they don't have a functioning social care service at all.
Yeah.
So to have the branch office managers up here bleating, going to improve the public services, please don't improve the public services. It's pretty pathetic. They're holding us back.
Yeah, but the unions are going to be harder to convince.
Yeah.
The unions they've come out against it, and it's like they ain't going to talk.
Yeah, but their reason for coming out against it's already gone. They were asking for £15 an hour to transfer the staff. Well, in the last couple of years, the staff would be getting £15 plus an hour.
Yeah, but that now is £22.50 or whatever.
Of course it is, aye.
Yeah.
Of course it is, and we'll see them do that stunt again. It'll be then up to the people who work in the care sector to pull in the neck of their trade unions if they want it.
Yeah.
After all, they're the members. Never mind the trade unions and their political shenanigans.
Yeah.
The members will need to sort the trade unions out. Anyway, Neil's getting back around the table and Finley's telling all we're no drafting it. But David, we didn't discuss this on this programme the last time, but Russell Finley tells a Tory party conference that he's going to put a motion before the Scottish Parliament to ban the Scottish Parliament for talking about Scottish independence.
when in actual fact, it was the SNP that didn't mention it, and it was all the opposition parties that did mention it.
Aye.
Yeah.
Enjoy your wheelchair tennis, Melanie. And don't piss off in the middle of a programme again or you'll be on the naughty step.
Who's that you're talking about?
It's a friend of yours, Melanie McCann from Sweden.
All right.
Right, so the Tories want ready the idea of the concept of a national care service. The SNP are going to try and resurrect it as the trade unions and the councils try to kibosh it. Okay.
I tell you what, for Scotland to pull off that kind of thing, if it could happen, would be absolutely marvellous.
Well, as we know, Starmer's already talked about looking at it, down that road. Right, let's move on. And good news for commuters after the bad news of the return of the peak fares. The good news is that ScotRail to return to a full-time timetable on, try saying that quick, full-time timetable on Monday. Now, as we know, the pay strike came to an end last week, but there was more than the strike action going on as part of this action from the train drivers and the unions. There was also a work to rule in place. Alistair, that's awfully generous of you.
Alistair, that's wonderful, mate. Thank you very much.
That's £30 today, so you're an awfully generous man. Anyway, where were we? There was two actions on the go. There was a work to rule as well as strike action. Now, they've announced, hard on the back at the end of the strike action, they have now balloted the train drivers on their work to rule, and they've agreed to end their work to rule. Now, the reason why believe it or not, David, this work to rule was because the train drivers were getting too much overtime, and they were being
too much money in the time to spend it.
No, but they were claiming the amount of hours. They were claiming the amount of hours they were doing were making it dangerous. So, as part of the pay deal and the conditions, ScotRail has agreed to train more drivers.
But I still believe the best way is that drama that I watched a couple of weeks ago, reference the train being under automatic or remote control. I can just see all these people, like instead of operating drones, they can operate the trains. Simple as that.
Listen, that'll come anyway. Driverless trains will come, same as driverless buses. driverless trucks will come, driverless taxis will come. It will come. But anyway, good news for commuters. The work to roll over. But good news for commuters is bad news for certain bus companies because they've been putting on they've been putting on alternative travel for the commuter at the weekend. Well, train drivers are back at work. Sorry, bus companies. There you go. Right, so that's good news for commuters that ScotRail will be back to a full timetable on Monday. Right, this was a public service announcement here in Scotland, David. And that is to let people know that before the last day of this month, record your meter readings. Because at the end of this month, I believe, or it could even be the beginning of this month, the price of energy has shot up by 10%.
Funnily enough, as was said before, France have just reduced their prices by 10%.
Anyway, so the advice out there for money, other money advice people is get your meter readings out and get them in so that you're not getting charged the new price.
Excuse me, but the phrase thieving bastards comes to mind. But anyway.
Anyway, there's a second part to that. People in Scotland who don't have a smart meter are being warned they've only got until next June to get a smart meter. Now, David, people won't know this, but at this point in time, when your meter goes from the cheap rate to peak rate.
That's if you have it. That's if you have a connection.
Aye.
Many smart meters do not have a connection because the people have changed suppliers. The moment you change a supplier, the new supplier does not have the codes to operate that smart meter.
Now, as I say, I don't want to get into with new. I'm just saying people who don't have one. Now, I'm going to explain to people why they have to get changed apparently. Apparently, there's an analogue signal sent out across BBC transmitters which let your meter know and your central heating system know when the cheap rates kicked in. If you don't get a smart meter by next June, because that's when they're turning this analogue signal off apparently, and you can get the gist of this story, the rest of this story on the BBC website. But if you don't have it, it means there will be no cheap rate. You will be paying peak rate all the time.
Is this UK wide?
Don't know about UK wide, but we've been told here in Scotland.
Right. But you mentioned a figure of 175,000 people.
Yes, that's Scotland. That's Scotland alone.
Scotland, right. Scotland doesn't have the amount of engineers in that particular domain to deal with that number of installs of smart meters. End of. That's your first one. So you're talking about by next June, we're talking about 8 months. We're talking 10 months, right? So 10 months, let's split that down. That's 17,500 installs per month. Not going to happen. And I would recommend to anybody that's listening, if you don't have a smart meter and you are lucky enough to have one of the old-fashioned meters, make sure you've got the knife stuck well and truly between your teeth if anybody comes to try and fit a smart meter to your house.
You try to get us put up here.
Because they're crap.
You try to get us put up here. Tell people to take a knife to the guy that's coming to swap your meter.
It was a turn of phrase. All right.
You tell that to the bombs at YouTube.
Yeah.
So, anyway, folks, so apparently we're all being forced onto smart meters because apparently there's an analogue system which is being turned off next June here in Scotland. But they said that in March this year. And because the amount of meters that still had to be installed, they delayed switching that signal off. So chances are come next June, as David has pointed out, the amount of installs that's going to need to be done, that switch off of the analogue signal will probably be kicked.
Next bit of advice or reference to that is if you are too poor to pay for your electricity or your gas, right, and it gets cold or you cannot cook, use it. Make sure you use it, because at the end of the day, if there's enough people in that position, they'll know of enough blooming court places to get to actually deal with it. Simple as that. Right? We are getting to a situation whereby they are threatening to do this, X, Y, Z. They don't have the resource to deal with it. And if people don't pay for their electricity or their gas, they don't have the court situation to be able to deal with it either.
Very good.
Simple as that.
Yeah, fair enough. Just use your electricity. They can't throw you in the jail.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no room in the jails.
Yeah.
Right, anyway, the Governor of the Bank of England is playing silly buggers by the looks of it. He is playing mind games with the financial services industry, especially the money market.
This is what we talked about earlier. Yeah.
Anyway, especially the money market. Because he takes 1.5 cent off the value of the pound and the dollar a day by releasing an article in The Guardian where he says if interest rates stay steady, the Bank of England might be much more aggressive in reducing interest rates. Now, the reason I'm saying he's playing funny buggers with this one, David, is because he knew, by saying he might be more aggressive in reducing interest rates, he was going to spook the money markets, and the pound was already weak, and that was going to weaken the pound again, which means that inflation rates there will be inflationary pressures just from his statement alone.
Yeah, from England. England is an importing nation. Scotland's an exporting nation.
Still
right?
Not quite as much.
So and it's a number of imports that cause the inflation.
Anyway,
sorry.
To explain it before David jumped ahead for a wee bit. What the Governor of the Bank of England done, spooking the money markets and bringing up the value of the pound, was put inflationary pressures into the market, because it costs more now to bring things in. And of course, the extra cost of bringing things in, importing, will of course be passed on to the customer, and that will see price rises in the markets, and price rises have been driving inflation. So it would appear that the Bank of England governor is playing funny buggers in order not to be aggressive in cutting interest rates.
Now, my take on that is, for a start, when they discuss the basket of goods that they have actually worked out inflation on, it's like, I have no interest in vinyl records. I'm sure there are people on here that do have interest in vinyl records, but why is that in the basket of goods that work out the interest or the inflation rate for the UK? I find that stupid.
I don't want to address Andrew Alexander's comment here. Andrew, I'm aware of the deal that the UK has just cut to return the Chagos Islands and Diego Garcia back to the Mauritians and to the indigenous people. The handover won't take place for another 50 years, and they will get to hold on to the military base on one of the islands. Now, the reason why they've asked for that 50 years is because in 50 years' time they refuse. The people who are left, the indigenous people who have died out, they've been able to make the fucking claim. This is a wheeze by the Americans and the UK. 50 years' time, Mauritius will get fuck all, because they'll be back in the courts to be told, nah, you're not getting the islands. The indigenous people who came to these islands are now gone, now dead. And what's left have all been absorbed into the population of Mauritius. So that was the whole idea of this announcement. In 50 years' time, they'll be back in the fucking courts. End of story.
I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if they try the same thing with Scotland, because they've been successful with they might try the same thing with Scotland.
Right. Anyway, let's move on. Mayor, Labour sleaze. It's been one big sleazeball since the start. Anyway, as it's announced today that Starmer's going to pay £6,000 back to the people who give them freebies, it has now been discovered that the deputy PMs, holidays and clothes and everything else are also freebies. So, it's discussed in the press today how Angela Rayner's wee shindig in Ibiza was a freebie to the value of 839 quid. The front bench MPs spend their money on anything. Let's face it, they move them their family.
I bet she even gets drinks bought for her. Something like that.
I mean, if they move them and their family into second home, they don't pay for a second home, they don't pay for a power, they don't pay for a TV licence, they don't pay for Sky, Netflix and every other subscription. They don't pay for food. Do they actually spend any of their wages?
No.
Anyway, that comes in the back of the news that MPs' wages to rise to £91,000 a year. Are they worth it?
No. Definitely no.
Well, anyway, and the other question that I've heard ask about this was I've seen Richard Murphy put a video asking if 91 grand a year was middle class. And the top end of middle class is £66,000 a year. Once you realize that, you're heading into pretty well the lower echelon of the higher class.
Yes.
Not quite the elite, but the upper class.
Yeah.
Anyway, you see, it really doesn't. The optics of this is no good as they batter the poorest in society, David. It's just not on.
Yeah.
But as Mark Telfer's got, an MP's salary is basically 100% disposable income.
Yeah, one unionist I remember speaking to said that, we need these rich MPs and millionaires even in the cabinet, right? Because they know more. They're more intelligent. And I said, when does having money in your pocket make you more intelligent? It's like, it's ridiculous that people think that, right? But people do. People look up to people with money. It seems to be ingrained in the population's nature. Is that they do look up to people with money, right? If you see King Big Ears walking down the street somewhere, people will be there waving flags for him, right? Because he's got lots of money.
Maybe in England, David, but actually somebody showed here in Scotland that if you get too big with your boots and you start bragging about your achievements, you get your legs booted out for under you. But we don't have the class. We don't have that class that they have down that road.
Yeah.
We don't. And that's why you can find yourself in a bar with an actor who's stoning his round as much as a punter.
Yeah.
And isn't he boast about how wealthy he is? Because he'd get clocked for being a dick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so as I say, down that road, you're right. They tend to, because of the class system, which is ingrained, look at each class as they go upwards.
Yeah.
The working class look up to the middle class look up to the higher class, and the higher class now have to look up and strain their necks to even see the elite class. Yeah. And of course, because of the way the class system now works, the working class look down the way to what they're now calling the underclass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
they call benefit scroungers, benefit scroungers like old age pensioners. I'm being sarcastic.
No, you're not being a pain in the arse because you keep bringing this up. We know that pensions no a benefit, David.
And I'll keep saying it.
I know, and it's getting to the point where it's boring, so people are not coming back to hear it anymore.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm always joking. Now, what did you see Starmer's speech? No, you didn't. Have you the chance to look it up?
No, I know the chance. Obviously, I know the chance to look it up since you mentioned it, right? But please carry on.
In response to Iran's retaliatory strike against Israel for Israel violating the Iranian state property and their embassy in Beirut, Starmer says, and he had no choice really because Biden already made the statement. And as we know, Starmer, one of the first things he did was tie the UK to US military strategy. He gives a speech telling us that the full might of the British state will stand behind the genocidal regime, which is Israel.
And Starmer couldn't wait to give that undertaking and give that speech because he is a Christian Zionist.
No, interesting.
His family are Jewish, right?
Okay.
And
he had no right to stand up and say that he had the power to put the might of the state
dead right
at the disposal of the Israeli people.
Dead right. It should have been put to the Parliament. It should have been done. Same as it did with the Iraqi war, the second one. They actually voted on it, if you remember.
But as you know, there's been no vote in the parliaments really for supporting Ukraine financially. It was just done because at this point in time, with Henry VIII powers, they could just make that pledge.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what Starmer's done. He hasn't went and consulted Parliament. He's just told us straight out that he will put the might of the state at the disposal of the genocidal maniac in Tel Aviv. Thank you, Michael. Which is pretty frightening, actually.
Yeah, it's the end of any form of democracy that exists anywhere in the UK.
It's also a declaration of war.
Yes.
Thanks, Marie. Of course, every wee bit helps. You're right. No matter how big or small the nation, every bit helps.
Yes.
You know,
thank you.
It is going to be needed.
Mr. E.
It is going to be needed more and more, especially this winter when people can't afford to heat and heat. But as I say, Starmer, technically he has the right, but he shouldn't have done it without going before Parliament. He hasn't asked the Parliament, and one thing's for sure, I don't think he has the support of the people either.
Well, you can imagine that in a situation like that, where our lads and lasses are pushed into Lebanon, right? They become targets. If any of those die, then effectively it becomes the responsibility of the person that made the decision autocratically as Starmer.
That beside the point. If there's going to be boots on the ground, which is then they will have to be on mainland Iran, because if you want to effect regime change, you will need to take out the regime.
Yeah, all right.
So nobody Lebanon, these boots will be going to. But what Starmer was basically doing was making a declaration of war on Iran last night.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous because he wants to support Israel. His whole stance is supporting Israel.
We know that.
When you had all those people protesting against the action in Gaza, right? What he did was, what did he do? What was his response to all those people protesting? Effectively, he shut them up.
Yeah, well, Tories were doing that, no?
Yeah.
But as I say, he's effectively guaranteed Israel that the UK will put its whole power behind supporting Israel. Whereas we know Israel's wrong in this, and so is the UK, because the UK was responsible for the creation of the Israeli state. And the people forget why the Israeli state was formed. It was because the peoples of Europe, the Jewish people were running away from Europe. They didn't want to stay there. They were frightened. And they were stuck on boats off the coast of the UK and off the coast of America because the UK and America didn't fucking want them either.
Yeah.
So therefore, we had the Balfour agreement. But Mr. E, don't be daft. Mr. E, that's mental.
Yeah, come on. It's a lot of money.
It's a fair whack of money. Because are dead generous. The majority of it won't go to the baby banks this Christmas, but it'll also go to feed the people as well.
The thing we're going to say is thank you very much, but please be careful. Please be careful with your own money. It's like, I know there's certain people that are able to afford things like that, but careful.
To be honest with you, in the Rev 2, the truth and facts, David McGuinness, don't these Zionists realise that Iran is one of the most powerful countries in the world? No, but we don't really know that either, because we were told the Israelis were good enough. Now look at them, they've been bogged down in fucking Gaza for the last 12 months.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And guerrilla warfare has got them bogged down in Gaza.
Yeah.
And the same thing will happen in Lebanon. So no, we don't really know. We know that they're a big army. They're allegedly well equipped. That doesn't mean they're any good at fucking using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in the past, Iran have done a few actions like at sea within the Gulf. They've done that. They've done that successfully. They brought down a drone, one of the US drones, using a very, very clever piece of kit, which they flew above it to make it to think that it was higher than it actually was, and they managed to get it skidding along the ground. So that was effective. So Iran, we'll see. We'll see.
But you see, anyway, Starmer's pledged to put the might of the British state behind
You've gone very still, very silent, Mr. McGuinness. I'm afraid we have a similar thing happening this week. David, you broke up. David, you froze up. You froze up there.
An article in the Telegraph this morning. I know, David.
Right.
Am I back yet?
So say it again. Yeah.
Am I back now? Mrs. Woman was walking past her out on something breakfast. That's the joy.
David, is there anything?
Anyway.
No, hold on a second. Is there anything you've got that's running on your PC apart from just this?
No.
Okay. Obviously,
somebody. And I'm using Google.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Anyway, back to it. This leads to Ben Wallace penning an article in the Telegraph today telling us that the UK and the RAF don't have the weapons to shoot down missiles to help Israel, and that the fleet isn't fit that we have and isn't well equipped that we have in the Red Sea. And as we know, we couldn't put a battle group on the ground anywhere according to the Yanks. So Starmer's pledge to aid Israel with the full might of the UK state, no offering much. But there's another side to this. If Starmer leads the UK and anti-war in the Middle East, fucking feel sorry for the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
because that'll be the end of munitions to Ukraine. Because the UK will be needing those munitions in the Middle East.
It's down to this thing, that David.
Set up straight, David.
Yeah, the situation that we see yet again is resource. We're talking about people making statements, but not having the resource to back it up.
Well, we know they don't.
Same with electric, same with the courts, same with all these things. They're all resource based, and I'll tell you now, you do what you like, and we're not going to make much of an impact on Iran. We might as well not be involved.
Class action, we know that Israel's in the Mediterranean, but you know the route into the Med through there is the Red Sea, so that's where they're patrolling. That's where the Houthis are hitting vehicles that are heading into the canal.
Yeah.
So you're right, Israel is in the Med. Well, anyway, so Stam was promised, and that could be a problem for Ukraine. That could be a problem for Ukraine. Right, talking about Ukraine, NATO new chief, tells us, I'll get Ukraine up. Russians claim that they've taken the key city of Valeda in Ukraine's east. Apparently 6 been killed in an attack in a market town in Ukraine. And this one is the big story at the moment, and that is that NATO's new chief, Mark Rutte, tells us that there is no imminent threat of nuclear conflict with Russia. Now, what does that tell us, David?
Well, David Lammy was talking about giving missiles to Ukraine.
Yes,
and so that they could send missiles into Russia. It's like the chap you greatly said, the chap from NATO quite rightly said, no, we're not.
The General Secretary of NATO doubles down on the fact that Ukraine will get nothing but the defensive weapons from NATO.
Yeah.
Therefore, kiboshing the threat of nuclear war. But it is a blow to Zelensky.
Yeah.
You know,
appreciate it.
It is a blow for Ukraine.
So Zelensky wants to keep this going in terms of so he can do as much damage to Russia as possible to improve his negotiation with Putin, because that negotiation will happen at some time.
It will have to come, David. You're absolutely correct. Now, what's the mad butcher in Tel Aviv been up to? Shall we have a look? Live, Israel strikes Beirut as it tells more people in South Lebanon to leave their homes. Israel's strike on Gaza school kills 22 people, and Israel's attack in southern Gaza last night killed 51. And apparently 3 Hamas leaders have been killed, but they're only just been identified now, months after their murder, apparently. UN chiefs condemn Iran attack after on Israel. And as we say, we'll get greater escalation on the way with genocide.
Well, the Iran attack on Israel was missile based.
Yes.
Because we're talking about that they were gearing up to do a missile strike against Israel. And which get through, we haven't been told that, because the Patriot system will have been working away at that, right? But the Patriot system isn't infinite. It only has a certain number of weapons to put up, right? So if you imagine there was 1,000 missiles in the Patriot system, and you send 2,000 or 3,000 missiles across to Israel, then the Patriot system would fail quite badly.
That brings us to how this has been reported. Now, Iran is reporting that it hit 90% of its objectives,
Uh-huh.
while Israel is claiming it shot down 90% of the missiles.
Yeah. Okay.
Both statements could be true. A large percentage of missiles that were sent up may well have been sent up as cover for the ones that they wanted to get through, after they'd tested that defence system before. And the other thing was the Iranians only attacked military facilities and a gas facility.
Yeah.
That's it. And apparently they hit them. We've seen the footage all over social media. So Israel's claim to obtain down 90% of the rockets could well be true.
Yeah, it will be true.
And Iran's claim to have hit 90% of its objective targets could also be true. Because 100 plus odds of those rockets could have been sent up there for cover for the 10% to get through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple as that.
Now you
So
see me.
both those
Now you
statements
don't.
could be true, folks.
Yeah.
Just so you're aware of that.
I hate
now we could be
discussing. I hate discussing strategy.
East and boots on the ground by and out of a.
Oh, you
went that.
Frozen again. Sorry.
It's not exactly something that's obvious to everybody, you know. Strategy and objective, and of course, in warfare, keep strategy and objective separate.
Yeah.
David, you there?
I'm here. I'm listening.
Hello.
Hello. I'm still here. Hello.
Just as well we're winding this one up. Are you there, David?
Yes, I'm here.
Aye. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Aye, okay. Just as well we're winding this. Just as well we're winding this one up. Okay. Right.
Yeah,
folks, thank you for your generous.
Yep.
Want to thank you for your generous donations to the Food Bank Fund today, and all your other donations, of course. Want to thank the moderators for moderating, and they want to thank you all for viewing in large numbers. 196 at one point, 170 now. And hit the like button, hit the share button. If you're on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It helps the algorithm. And that just leaves one thing left to do, David.
Talk to BT. And bye, Davey.
Bye, David. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
I'll be back tomorrow morning, 10:30, day newspaper review. And David and I will be back again on Monday to do it all again. Have a nice day.